I loved the idea of creating a custom program. And I knew that there were all these different things that I was interested in. In high school, I had done a variety of different summer internships and fellowships. I did a National Transportation Institute. I went to journalism school for a summer semester. I did an Academy of Applied Sciences fellowship working an NIH grant. So I was doing lab work in biotech. Like, there were all of these very different things. And each of the things that I just articulated, all of those had experiences that have been helpful with my current role and my previous one. And I learned perhaps more at the intersections. And because of those unusual combinations of courses that I took. So I loved that experience. And honestly,
I think I've always been sort of different in the way that I think, in the way that I never fit into a major. And that was where I sort of landed at Dr. Wakefield's door. Like, can I do this? Because I was trying to fit into a different major my freshman year, and it just wasn't quite right for me. And so landing at the ILA's door and Dr. Wakefield's door was just essential for me to realize, I can actually bring my best self here, which has always been a multidisciplinary approach to the way that I see the world. So I think that's really what led me to this major, was just my own way of thinking and my own perspective on the world, which is there's not one way to solve a problem, but it's really about the intersectionality of different ideas and concepts. And it allowed me to actually take on a role that was far beyond my years at that time, but it was, I think, so I do really think that there is professional value in having the ability at the age that you all are to see how topics intersect and explore what those intersections are. So I do think that that's hugely valuable. I also think that that curiosity is more important than anything else. Like the skill building that comes from a major that actually cuts across different disciplines, the skill building around curiosity, the skill building around actually being able to ask people good questions and solve problems. I think that those skills are way more practical and useful down the line than any facts or figures that you learn in a particular class. So that, at least for me, those skills are things that I use daily when I'm coaching clients and helping them like really figure out, how do I thread together my story? What is my story? These are the questions I deal with daily with my clients. So I directly find correlations back to the work in my IDS major.
The ways in which I progressed, they weren't linear. I skipped about 15 or 20 years of what many other folks in my company would have spent in kind of lower to mid-level management and jumped into executive management. And it happened not despite my IDS major, but because of it. But it was precisely because I'd had all these experiences, Argentina, teaching in South Korea, all these things that people were interested in me. That's how I got all these different opportunities. And I think
the international experience has definitely been significant, both in my educational background and the way that I look at the work that I do. I think being abroad in any shape or form can change how you think about yourself and can change how you think about what you're trying to do in the world. So that change in perspective is, I think, essential as we're all growing and changing.
The ways that you are pushed to grow and the sorts of experiences that you'll encounter when you're living abroad, it will change. It will vary from country to country, but regardless of where it is, you will be pushed, you will grow, you will learn in ways that you didn't know possible before.
I wish I had known that your career is a lot more like a quilt than it is a straight line. And what I mean about a quilt, I mean, like if you think about the most beautiful quilts, there are lots of different squares with lots of different colors. The colors don't always match. The patterns don't always match. And each thing you do is sort of like another square on that quilt. I think that having a colorful and diversely, aesthetically pleasing quilt is way better than one that's all the same color and the same texture. And I wish I had known that. I think, like I mentioned, I did put a lot of pressure on myself to have it all figured out and have that perfect job coming out of college and have everything sorted. And I didn't. And it led me to things that were the perfect job for me at that time that allowed me to get to a point where now I feel like I really am in the career that is the best use of my skills. And having, these years of experience behind me gives me a lot of space to create and have autonomy around how I spend my time. So I wish I had realized that when I looked at my parents and other people that I looked up to, it was very linear and very static, and it's just not that way anymore. So it's a lot more like a quilt than a straight line, zigzags.
All of these different things that you're going to learn as time goes on, how to deal with interpersonal conflict, how to deal with cross-cultural collaboration, how to deal with cross-cultural conflict. So many pieces you will get that are outside of just strictly your classes. So while your classes are super important, and we have ones that we look back on really fondly, there's also all of this learning too that's going to happen outside the classroom, that will happen after you graduate, and that will happen beyond that. And so just remember that all of those pieces go into the story of who you are and what your career is like.